Hello and welcome to another Practical IT video. I am joined once again tonight by David Rivera from the PE4Doers Channel. Welcome, David.
Oh,
And,
thank you very much, Jeremy. Thank you for having me again.
well, thank you for coming. Tonight we're going to be continuing on our conversation that we started a while back in a couple of videos, one on your channel, one on mine. Well, I guess we both broke them down into a couple of
Each
sub
one was
videos.
it came with the 4 videos altogether, as I recall.
Right? But this should be interesting and entertaining for everybody, and I think we're going to cover a pretty wide variety of topics. We're going to try to keep this to between an hour and a half, and see where we go with it.
Sounds good.
All right, so I guess let's start out real quick by talking about, did you want to mention any recent videos on your channel or milestones that you've reached on subscribers or anything like that?
Well, I just hit this morning, I think, 1750.
Wow.
So I'm moving along. I had some really good days for a while. I have it up on the screen right now up here. I always keep my third screen running with my channel analytics.
All right.
So I can see a running total of my subscribers, my views for the last 48 hours, how many people are viewing it in the last hour. I can see everything.
Very nice.
So I look up there. If you see me looking up there, that's usually because I'm checking it out.
I actually hit 1850 today, so you're gaining
Wow,
on me.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Looks like you should be able to hit the 2000 by the end of the year.
If my formulas in my spreadsheet are correct, I should be at or above 2000 before the end of the year.
Right.
Pretty easily.
Mine will be more of a stretch goal, but I'm shooting for the same thing.
Well, hey.
But you know what I'm doing. One of the topics we'll get later. It's in terms of selection of videos.
Yep.
I'm trying to follow a pattern of something that I from one of the YouTubers that I watch, a young woman who lives in New York City, and her name is Sarah Dici, rhymes with Peachy.
Okay.
Now, I latched on to her channel because she's big on videos related to photography.
All right.
And cameras and things like that. But she covers a lot of other interesting topics too. She even showed, she didn't build a PC, but she made some changes to one. So,
sure.
She's not really a techie person to any depth, but she does understand a lot of it. She's a Mac person, I think, in its nature. But anyway, I latched on to her and she gave me a good idea. She's been doing this probably for about 6-7 years. She's got, oh my gosh, 600,000 subscribers.
Wow.
Right. But, under the conditions, me and you don't
right.
have the same camera presence that she would have. Let's put it that way. But she is good. She's gotten really good. One of the things that she does, which I plan on doing someday, is she played some of her old videos. Like she was like a freshman in college when she started out.
Right.
And when you look at the old ones, it's amazing compared to what she's at now. Now she's got it in there. She just does it like perfect. Yeah. And I'm sure she's good at editing and everything else, but you can see she goes through long stretches where she doesn't edit it out and she still, holds it all together. Mm-hmm. That's what I aspire to. But I wind up doing a lot of pauses in my voice that mess me up. But anyway, she made the recommendation, which I'm following. She does one for me, one for you. Now, what she means by that is there are the types of videos she likes to do. She gets fulfillment from them. And most of my videos, I think, fall into that for me as well. They fulfill me in some way. They cover some topic that I really, really like. And something I want to impart onto people. And also, I don't know if I said it last time, that my rationale for starting this channel was for my descendants. Mm-hmm. Videos that I want them to watch and to learn from. And not just to learn the technology, because technology will be changing a lot, but also to learn from what I did, in my life, at least in the later stages of it, like now, to show that I could actually do certain things. I could present, I could, deal with technology. I know people my age that are totally lost with computers. It just shocks me to see that. I still can't believe it, but I was involved in computers when I was, 18 years old.
Right, right,
Before computers were even popular with anybody. So I can understand that. But I liked her one for you, one for me. The one for you that she refers to, which makes sense because they're the most popular ones I have too. They're the ones dealing with a product review. Let me make a video. And that went out to be a rather short video, just a little over 5 minutes. And for the longest time, that was my number one video. It's still up there. It's right now running number 6 for the last 28 days. So the ones that I did that I really didn't think were going to do well, but they had to do with a product review, something that people were interested in.
right,
Those are the ones that have the most views. They're making me the most money,
right, right,
and they're the ones that, are leading to companies contacting me to do similar devices to that.
right.
And I'm trying to follow the concept of, go with what's working when it comes to the videos. But
Sure.
that's the videos for you, not the videos for me
Right.
when it comes to a product review. So I try to swap them out as best I can, do as many of each. Sometimes I don't do 1 and 1 and 1. I'll do like 2 and then 1 and then, another 1 and then 2 over here. I try to
Right.
balance it out though, because, I don't want to be the product reviewer, especially I don't want to be the webcam or USB capture card reviewer.
Right,
But yet
right.
those are the ones that people are watching.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. My video I did, and it was a one-off video because I don't review Windows software that often. I did the AOMEI Partition Assistant,
Mhm.
and that video is, I think, still my top-ranked video. It's got over 25,000 views,
It's
and
amazing, isn't it?
I ended up turning off comments on it. I put a note on it that I don't recommend this product, but I don't know if I've got that notice on there now, but once I do a video on Part Ed Magic, I will be putting that disclaimer on there
Right.
because my video, my channel focuses primarily on different Unix variants, Linux, and a little bit of BSD, and the occasional time I'll get inspired to take a look at something based on Open Solaris, to get a true Unix derived system, but
Right.
I really don't do that much Windows stuff on my channel, and yet the videos that seem to get the highest views are joining Windows 10 to a domain controller running on Zenshal, which is it's Samba 4 running on top of a Linux,
Right.
and it's like well, it's just one of those things, but I've been considering lately, setting up another Zenshal server because I've had all this stuff running in various VMs, and so setting up Zenshal as for Active Directory, and then starting to go into like Sigma NAS and Open Media Vault, and connect them to
Right.
the domain controller for users and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
Because
that's what I got set up here. I don't have
yeah,
it on every PC, but it's the key PCs right now are all Active Directory using
right.
Central 4.
So it's like well, if people really have the interest in that,
Yeah.
I can start planning some of this stuff out, and
Right.
making more of a push to make videos to document the process of setting it all up. Um, it's just that those kinds of videos, they're a lot more involved in planning and
Yeah.
just getting everything right, because you almost have to run through the
The whole thing first.
whole thing first,
Yep.
just to make sure, and do some extra documentation before you can get to the recording part.
Right. Exactly.
So it's interesting. But I keep thinking of different ways to satisfy viewer demand and
Right.
still make it interesting to myself.
That's the whole thing. That's that same concept.
Yep,
One for you, one for
absolutely.
me, type of thing, right?
So and I did type a note in my document I've got open when you said that. And it's like, Yeah, I've been going down that sort of path, but I haven't heard it put like that before. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, it's worth taking a note and just kind of thinking about it a little bit more. And I admit I have not been good lately about doing pre-recorded videos. I've been good about doing my Sunday live stream every
yeah,
week.
yeah.
And
Something I haven't tried yet, but I will.
yeah. For better or worse, I mean, I generally have a couple of people show up every Sunday. I'm still not entirely sure I've got the time quite right, and so um, I may push back and start at noon instead of 11, because then it'd be
Okay.
9 a.m. on the West Coast. But it's just one of those things. I'm trying to find a balance and not necessarily have things like smack dab in the middle of my day, so it's
Right.
hard to do anything else around it.
Yeah, when I go live, I've been analyzing my analytics, a little bit of a pun there, and it looks like the best time probably for me would probably be about 5 p.m. during the week, and
Oh,
most likely Monday through Thursday. Fridays, people, I guess, are out or whatever. They're going to go outside
sure.
and do things at 5 o'clock right after work, right? It's less that way during this current world crisis,
Right,
right?
right.
But so I want to try to get myself in a pattern of that. It'll probably something like a Tuesday through Thursday, although Monday's pretty good too. I was surprised how well Mondays have done at about that time. But that's what I'm thinking. I want to have a few more things ready first, mainly
Sure,
with the
sure.
equipment. I know that was something that you were putting as a possible discussion point tonight anyway.
Hmm.
There's a little more equipment I'd like to get. Primarily, I want to put some webcams in different parts of this room that I can switch off to it using OBS, because I will be
Right.
using OBS when I do it.
Sure,
I
sure.
become pretty good at understand and working with OBS in my videos. I use it now when I do testing of video equipment.
Yeah.
I use OBS. So I would like to do that, and I'd like to be able to switch. This scene will bring up the camera up from the ceiling behind me, and they
Yep.
can see my screen. And this other camera here would be right in front of me, and maybe another one over here, which would be the one that's my high definition one. And
Right,
I'd be turning
right.
to that when I'm trying to do something where I'm talking to the camera
Yeah.
type of thing. And then I would like to put another one. And I already have a boom, but I'm thinking of buying one that goes up on the wall that'll come right over the top of my desk. And then it could look right down on my desk. And I was going to get a piece of wood and
Hmm.
have it nicely painted that I could put right on the top here. And so I have a bigger workspace to work with.
Nice.
So that's the type of stuff I'm trying to plan out before I go live, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. But
Well,
I was just looking at my videos just to close out that topic. The my number one video, total shock to me, almost 23,000 views, and it's reviewing a case, a computer case. This was the computer case that my daughter picked for her computer, which we decided when she got her own place, we were going to give her a gift,
mhm.
a home warming gift, and to give her a computer because she had asked about it. She didn't have a really good computer to, do things with or to play her games that she was thinking about playing. So I
Sure.
said, hey, I can get a video or two out of this anyway, and she needs a computer. So we took some money and we set it aside and we bought all the parts. And I let her pick the things that were important to her, right? Like the case, like the keyboard, like the monitor. I had picked a monitor which I thought was better than what she had, but she didn't like the looks of it, so we switched it out. But the case, she picked it, and I looked at it, and just by looking at it, it was purchased through Amazon. I didn't like it. It was glass on the front and glass
Right.
on the side, and I didn't see when I was looking at the close-up pictures of it. I didn't see enough air vents in it.
Right.
So I was like, oh, well, she wants it, so we'll get it. It also had a lot of LED lights. I mean, you can see right behind me right now. This is really mostly my prop, this PC. It's a working
Sure.
PC. It's pretty decent PC on it. It's got an i7 3770.
Mm-hmm.
It's got 16 gig of DDR3 memory. It's got an SSD, 500 gig SSD, and it has a 1 gig hard drive
Hey.
in it as well. It's a decent. I got my little soldier in there too. I don't know if you see him or not. But this opens up, and it's nice because I get to use it as a showpiece.
Oh yeah.
And of course, it's got the mustard and ketchup cables, but who cares?
Yeah.
But that's really a prop. Although sometimes I'll use it because I remote into it from this desktop.
Sure. Sure.
And it does have a keyboard and mouse. It doesn't have a monitor, so I can bring it around. It's got a wireless keyboard and mouse right behind it that I pull out when I want to get on the keyboard and do something extensive to it.
Sure.
But this was never meant to be something. This is sort of like a backup play computer.
Right. Right.
Type of thing. But I am planning on making another heavy backup computer. Matter of fact, what I'll do is that one that's back there is my backup that has the 3700X, the AMD 3700.
Right.
I'm going to upgrade that probably to a 3900. I'll change the motherboard out to an X570.
Oh wow.
And that one will be upgraded to that. And then I'll take the parts out of that one and build another one as a play system. And I want a play system that I can use for doing testing with, because this one that doesn't generate any heat at all.
Right.
I have cases. Matter of fact, I got a case sitting on the floor right here, waiting to be reviewed down here.
All right, still in the cardboard
case,
box.
R175R case sitting there, and I got another one which is out in the in my basement, in the place where I put all my spare parts. And I got like 4 or 5 cases now that I don't have computers in them, and I want to have a way of putting the innards of a PC in it that will generate some decent heat when I put load on it.
Right.
And I need the innards mostly. So that third computer I'm going to make is going to be taking it apart a lot.
Right, right.
And that'll have the innards from this other one right now, the 3700X, and it has an Asus Strix B550 motherboard in it. That's got the 2.5 gig that I mentioned earlier. So those innards will come out just like the innards that were in there before, which was a 2700X that went to my grandson.
Nice.
When I upgraded that to a 3700. So it's just another upgrade to it. I can't afford the new 5000 series AMD ones, but I want to let the bugs work out on them things anyway, right?
I think they're sold out already.
I'm sure they are.
And they weren't putting out new motherboards this time around, so it was just a BIOS update.
Yeah, there was a lot of misunderstanding about that originally, as you recall. When they announced that they were going to make that 5000 series, they were going to make people get a new motherboard.
Right.
Okay, I think that came out because of pressure from the motherboard manufacturers, which are partners of them. But then they got so much heat about it, they changed their mind. All it really needed was a BIOS update to support the 5000 series, right?
I think the other thing is since Intel hasn't been competing too well, they've actually raised the prices on some of their chips by $50. And I think one of the reports said that they didn't push new motherboards and a new chipset because they were already faster than Intel, and they were just skipping this generation for new boards and things. So the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle of all that, and it's often the case with corporations talking.
Yeah. There are many articles about the fact that they were going to push new motherboards.
Yeah, yeah.
And that they finally backed down from that. So that sort of makes sense in a way.
Yeah.
There was concern legitimately from their part that the average motherboard that supported the 3000 series wasn't large enough to support what they needed for the 5000.
Oh, gotcha.
So there was a legitimate concern about that, but let's face it, they can trim things down. We know they have a lot of excess stuff in there. All the extra graphics, they don't need that in the BIOS.
Right.
You could trim all that out of there, which is, by the way, the motherboard that my grandson got. I have in there an MSI uh, B450 Tomahawk, but not the Max one.
Sure.
And the regular, because it was a good price on that one. And I was at the time I was trying to get a computer together fast that was all AMD.
Right. Right.
And again, I was being fed by the comments I was getting.
Right.
I had built like 2 Intel systems, and people were asking me, am I an Intel shrill? And I said, no. I mean, I have my reasons for why I started off with Intel.
Right. Right.
Right. And that's because of a couple of reasons. I don't know if, to get into that or not, but it was something that I've always had a bad feeling about. When AMD first came out competing with Intel many years ago, they didn't do very well.
Right.
And, they suffered and caused a lot of people some angst.
Yeah.
And then when I was studying for my PE license in computer engineering, in 2 of my textbooks, which were not old, they were only about 4 years back from the point. Because you buy tech, when you're studying for a PE license, I don't know if I said this last time or not, you don't start with the latest textbooks.
Okay.
The test is derived intentionally from books that are 4 years previous. Because the way it's supposed to work, you do the first part of the PE exam called the FE, Part 1, which is the Fundamentals of Engineering test, while you're in a senior year, second semester, or
Right.
you've just graduated. And then you have to have 4 years of working experience minimum before you can take Part 2.
Gotcha.
So they would base the test upon the 4-year-old textbooks because they didn't want to get people to go and buy all new stuff.
Right.
And this goes back a long ways with the PE license because textbooks for college have always been expensive, and the online stuff and the training just wasn't available originally.
Right.
But they got into a pattern of developing the tests like that. So it was recommended, and good thing I did follow it. None of my textbooks were good from my undergraduate.
Right.
When I did electrical engineering and computer technology engineering, that was 25 years earlier.
Right.
So what I had to do is I had to buy all new textbooks to study this. It was almost like I went back to school on my own. I did it all on my own. So I had to buy computer design. I knew nothing about FPGAs, and I had to do that because that was going to be in a test. So I bought separate books that's on, the field programmable gate arrays. That was new technology for me. That's when I bought my own FPGA. I think I showed that to everybody last time, the testing. Did I show that last time?
I don't think so. I think we talked about it, but I'm not sure you showed it.
Yeah. This is a DE10 standard. As a matter of fact, Cornell University, that's where I learned a lot. The computer engineering professor there was using the DE1 standard and was recommending that people get their own DE10 standard. And it's really based upon Intel technology that's used for FPGAs. And if you look at this thing, it's a design board where you can create your own FPGA, and very sophisticated. This card itself cost me $400.
Wow.
And it's a little standalone computer. It has everything that a PC has. You can even see the sound connectors, and you see It has VGA, and it has HDMI, and it has an Ethernet, 1 gig Ethernet, and it's got, you name it, it's got it. Okay, so it's got USB 3.0s on it. Plus, it's got all of the test things. It's got the little switches, and it's got all these switches down here, and it's got the push buttons, and it's got on the board here, it's got 7-segment LEDs. And all of those things can be programmed through the FPGA.
Nice.
And it also has a 40-pin connector for an interface to another board if you wanted to. And this is what I used to learn how to do FPGA. And the software that you use to do this, the generation of the FPGA, changing from Verilog and or VHDL, which are 2 different languages, used to go from almost a Pascal-like language to actual circuit definitions, gate arrays, and things like that. Because in the FPGA chip, which is part of the main chip here, half of it is FPGA. The other half of it is a um, what's the name of that chip that's in the iPhone?
Oh, an ARM chip?
An ARM 4 chip
Right.
is on there. And it's got its own memory. This thing has 8 gig of memory on it. This is a very powerful little computer all by itself.
Right,
And
right,
you could either program, and you use the ARM chip to actually do direct programming of the fabric, the FPGA fabric that's on the same chip.
right.
It's amazing what this, and I had to learn all of this from my PE, and it was on the test. There were
Wow.
several questions about using Verilog and VHDL, and the whole idea of HDL in general means hardware definition language.
Right.
It doesn't produce executable code; it produces logic. I had to learn all of that from scratch. It was just unbelievable. The thing even has a regular old PS2 keyboard connector on it and a printer port, a printer USB printer
Oh,
port on it.
wow.
It's got everything. This is the reset button right here.
Nice. Now, is that a Xilinx board or is that
The
another?
Xilinx is more expensive. This is from a lower end company called Terasic. They're in
Okay.
Taiwan. I
Okay.
actually ordered this directly from Terasic in Taiwan.
Okay.
They had the best price.
Right.
I didn't buy it through Amazon or anything. And
Interesting.
if I was a student at the time, which I wasn't, I would have gotten uh, a 30% discount.
Wow.
So I would have gotten out of the 400, it would have cost me 30% less, which would have been significant.
Right. Right.
Unfortunately, even though I had just finished my MBA, my ID card for the Pace University, which is where I graduated from my MBA, it had already expired more than a year.
Right.
So I couldn't use it. I was exchanging emails with the sales rep over, at Terasic. It was very helpful. And she said, "Well, when did it expire?" And I said, "About 13 months ago." She goes, "No, we can't. If it was less than a year, we could." I just missed it by less than a couple of months. I could have saved before, but it turned out okay because my job, once I got the PE license, they reimbursed me for everything.
Wow.
There's a long story behind that. I'm not going to go into it because it's a little bit nasty with the manager I had at the time when I was starting my PE license. Me and him did not get along. And he
um.
told me flat out that he would not pay for it. He would not approve any payment for my PE license.
Wow.
But when I did get my PE license, the new person who had taken over, and not even both levels had changed out, both my director and the vice president. They had both been changed. And I was a friend of the vice president. We went through the MBA program together. And when I got it, I told him the story, and he says, "That's okay. We're paying for it." He said, "Put in expenses." It took a while to get it all paid because after the
Sure.
fact, it's kind of hard to get approved. But here's a vice president willing to do that for me, and I wound up getting every dime back. All those textbooks I bought, all of the fees I paid for the test, and the fees I paid for the license itself.
Right.
We're talking about something that was like $3,500.
Wow.
That they paid for. They gave me in one lump sum. And that was expense money, so there's no taxes on that.
Nice.
Right? That's like expense reimbursement. And they paid for that card too.
Very
So
nice.
I don't play with that much. Originally, when I started this channel, I meant to do that, but I haven't had a chance to make a video on that yet. It's one of those really obscure things that I think a lot of people, there's a small audience of people that would be interested in that, but videos on that would fall into the videos for me.
Right. Right.
That's how they would fall into. So I'd be part of that
Yeah.
because I
Well,
don't think many people would be interested.
one thing that might interest people, I think the DE10 platform is the same one that they use for the Mister project. Are you familiar with that?
The Mister. It's used in a couple of projects. Can you maybe you have to remind me of what that was about?
So this particular one that I'm thinking of, they use it for a lot of classic video game emulation.
Yes, yes.
So you might get some serious views if you were to, you should be able to use that board even. I think they use the Nano board generally.
It's a smaller version of that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you might get some good views if you talked about the board and talked about what you know the general public, so to speak, could use something like that for.
Maybe that's some. Now I do have another board. It's a much cheaper board. I bought that from Amazon because I saw it as something available at a low price,
Hmm.
and it's one that only has the FPGA on it,
Right.
right? But still, if I get something to work on this one, it'll work on that one.
Right.
It's
Right.
also from a Thoracic, but it's one of
Okay.
their really low end boards. It
Sure.
doesn't have
Sure.
all of the LEDs, and it has the LEDs, but it doesn't have the 7 segment things. It doesn't have the ports for certain things that this one has. So it's much more
Right.
limited. But my goal in buying that, and I have it right over there in my design lab thing that I made a video about, was to have it so that I could create a communication through FPGA between these two boards.
Nice.
That's really getting into it if I did
Yeah.
something like that. And I hope I do it before I forget how to do it.
Right. Right.
It's amazing how the software, it's provided by Intel for free. It used to be a company that was specialized in that. I can't think of their name right now, but Intel bought them out, and they
Okay.
still maintain the software. The software is free as long as you don't try to take the output of it. Basically, they limit it. It will not produce the chip layout.
Okay.
So you can actually use the same software if you buy the commercial version of it, which, by the way, the software alone, if you bought that, the commercial version, we're talking it costs a minimum of $2,500 just for the software.
Wow.
Now, the only thing they pulled out of that software, and it goes up from there. The software goes up to like a $5,000 version of it.
Wow.
If you want a full-blown one, or you pick one of the ones that's apparent to this board, like the one you mentioned earlier, is a much bigger one. And if you have a much more fully featured, you even have one that goes into your PC using PCIe,
Right.
and you can have your PC then act like the processor. So, like, instead of having the ARM processor on it like that one does, your PC becomes that,
Wow.
and it has a really large FPGA.
Right. Right.
And it has a pigtail adapter coming off the back of it that has all of the ports you could possibly have.
Right.
And that's used by the people who are really making chips, including chips for chipsets, including chips for processors, small
Right.
processors, dedicated circuit processors. But if I bought the commercial version of it, it can produce the actual guidance needed by the chip fabrication equipment.
Okay.
They can feed that in, and it can fabricate that chip from that.
That's
So it's very
amazing.
sophisticated. That's how they do this.
Right. Right.
So, as a matter of fact, I think I might have mentioned on the last time we were talking on for the one that's on your channel, there was a rumor that the Verilog code for one of AMD's video cards, a graphic card,
Right.
actually wound up spilling out into public domain.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing in the news for a while,
Yep.
because initially it was denied, and then later on they admitted that yes, somebody had stolen the Verilog. And that's when I made a video. It never really became a hit, on what is Verilog.
Right.
I made a video about that,
Yeah,
showing what
I think I
Verilog
watched
is.
that one because I was curious about it. I'd never had any real exposure other than seeing it in different magazines and
Right.
reference material.
It's like I said, it's a Pascal. It's like a Pascal/C language.
Mm-hmm.
Very similar operators, except there's other operators to it that at first you don't know what they mean. They're like the equal sign with the greater than.
Right.
That means something totally. First of all, it's not available in C or in Pascal.
Right.
And that specifically tells you whether you're going to do parallel execution or not.
Okay.
And then you have the double equal sign. And then you have the equal sign with the greater than. And all of those changed the operation, whether the instructions that are right below that doing that are executed sequentially or serially.
Okay.
Now, we know all programs are executed serially. That's not true when it comes to hardware descriptor language and
Right.
HDL. Verilog is the most common. It's the easiest one to understand. The VHDL, the other one, I had to study that too. I didn't like it. It's meant for making super high speed or very high speed logic.
Okay.
It has operators in it just for that.
Gotcha.
And the code that it produces, well, there's code, the logic that it produces is meant for that type of, not just parallel, because Verilog produces the parallel as well, but it also tightens it up and makes it run much faster. Because the
Sure.
more gates you have, the more latency you'll have through the circuit.
Right.
So that's an important thing. I can't even express to you how much. There was like 3 chapters on that in one textbook, and I had to painstakingly study those 3 chapters. There was one question on it on the test.
Oh my gosh.
But I didn't know that. I thought there was going to be more, but I was studying the timing between the circuits and what the overall impact on the latency is. That is unbelievable. And that also shows you too that's where I could more easily understand things like overclocking.
Right. Right.
Because that's the same concept. In order to make the latency not affect the gate state, because you got to watch out, because the gate state here could change three layers later,
Right.
right? In terms of timing, if one of them is more latent than the other. If you put 2 sets of gates and the rest of them only a 1 set of gates, the latency itself could change the logic value at the end mux that you're depending on to have a certain state in it. And what controls that a lot is the voltage level and the clock rate. Those 2 have to be set just right.
Right.
And
right.
the problem is when you increase the clock rate, you have to also increase the voltage. Because when you increase the clock rate, now you start getting you no longer have a square wave. You now have something that looks like a sawtooth wave.
Right.
And at some point, it gets below the level where it can decipher whether it's a 1 or a 0.
Okay.
That's where the problem is. So what you do to account for that is you bump up the voltage so that the thing comes back up. The sawtooth gets higher, and now you can discern what's a 1 and a 0 more clearly. Well, the only problem with increasing the voltage, the resistance stays the same. So what happens to the power? The power goes up.
Right.
When the power goes up, the heat goes up. Right. So those are, all offsets. One of the sets of one video I'm going to probably going to get into soon. It's one for me. Is I had to do a couple of projects in my MBA program. They were related to Excel modeling, and I never knew that was something that people did. The tools that are available in Excel by just out of the box is amazing for creating very sophisticated models written all in Visual Basic.
Mm-hmm.
But you can add on packages to it. And they gave us an add-on package during one course in graduate school, the MBA program, under data analysis and statistics. That was one course. And in there, they gave you this tool you had to add on to your PC that gave you more tools for doing data analysis, including tools that made the creation of these models a lot easier.
Right.
So I made some very nice models. I modeled, I think I mentioned it last time, I modeled a brewery. Mm-hmm. I always wanted to be the guy in the group. We did this projects group-wise, 4 or 5 people in the group, depending on what, and they mixed it up every course. I always wound up being the coder. Right? We'd all design it together. We'd all sit in the conference rooms and design how we wanted it to work, even how the user interface would be, because you can create a user interface very sophisticated with Excel as well. Mm-hmm. It has the object-oriented components to it that allow you to create that very easily.
Sure.
And so I would be the coder, and then we'd all test it together. That was good because I had 3 or 4 other people to help test it. And they would find bugs or they would find mathematical errors because it got very sophisticated, like when we modeled a power plant.
Right.
And that's one of my proudest ones because we actually made that very accurate. It showed a theoretical power plant that actually wasn't theoretical. It represented one that we knew about that was 150 megawatts output. But the way it worked was they only wanted to output power. It was an optional power plant that would only come online when it was profitable to do it. And because of the price of electricity and the price of gas are always doing these types of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had to time it so that you only ran the plant when you were above a certain percentage of profitability.
Right,
We
right.
had to build that all into the model. And then the model came up with a weekly run schedule. Now, the way it worked, because it took time and it took money to cycle the plant down and up, you only wanted to cycle it up if you were going to be able to run for a long enough period to absorb the cost of cycling up and then down again.
Right.
So all of those math functions had to be built into the model, all written in Excel using Visual Basic, or just regular cell math. We could do some cell math too, because
Sure,
there's a lot
sure.
of functions in Excel, and it depended on how you created your model, whether you're using cell math or programming the math into the Visual Basic.
Right.
So we all decided as a group on every single formula had to be in there, and it's a very sophisticated model. It came up with a separate, because I knew how to do this already. You actually make it up, create a new tab with the actual run schedule for the week, showing you what days, what hours it was running, and it was based upon the statistical analysis where you did a predictive forecast of based upon many factors. There was that's where the add-on tools to Excel came in handy, figuring out the forecasting.
Sure.
And you gave it a year's worth of history of data, minimum. So you showed what the pricing. All you had to do was give it the pricing of gas and the pricing of electricity. And when those two models came out to a profitable thing, you should run the plant. The Excel model actually produced the schedule to run during those hours. It was
Nice.
unbelievable. It's one of the most sophisticated things I ever did in terms of programming, with a lot of math in it, a lot of sophistication. I was going to make a video just showing how that is, and then measuring the interest for people who might want to learn some of how to make a model. And one of the models I was thinking that people might really be interested in is a model that would help them model how to tune, how to overclock their system, taking into factors of the board itself. Because if you have limitations on it,
Right.
you could set those up as input variables that you can change, and usually put those in cell math, and you gray those out and you label what they are. Well,
Right.
what it is, this motherboard is only capable of such and such for this factor, or this motherboard, this processor that you put in there is only capable of this. And you can get really sophisticated too. You could put a drop-down menu for all the different processors in it
Oh,
that would
yeah.
automatically change all the numbers. So I was going to maybe consider making a model to help people come up with that. Even if it's just on theoretical basis, it's a nifty thing to know.
Sure.
It'll help you understand what the factors you have to consider when you try to overclock.
Yeah.
But
I
that
could
would
see
take
where
a
that
long time to prepare something like that.
I was going to say I could see where that could take a lot of time because there are different variables with Intel versus AMD, and then all the different
Well, I'll start with
motherboards
one,
and chipsets
and
and
work from there. Get it to work for one. That's what we found out with the power plant.
right,
Get
right,
it to work for one, and then you add the other ones later.
yep. So yeah, that would be an interesting one, at least for me to see. Um, so
But I was going to make a video showing the models I already did. The brewery, the same thing with the brewery in terms of, what to brew depending on
sure,
demand. And it was a theoretical thing where this small company, they had certain customers in certain states, and you would know what the demand would be coming in from those states for that particular what do they call the beers again? I can't think of it when they're made in small batches like that.
a craft beer.
The craft beer, yes. It was all about craft beer. And I think people might be interested in that one just because it's craft beer, right?
Right, right.
Anyway, those were ones I was thinking of doing. I was going to put a video together, probably separately. There would be too long a video covering them all on a couple of these things, on the models I already created, and
Sure.
then see what the interest might be.
Right,
I
right.
don't know. I haven't decided yet. What about you? Do you have anything like that you mentioned one already. Is there any others?
Um, I'm going to be circling around to some topics that I've covered before. I've recently had people start asking questions again on some older videos. One of my Zigmanas videos, somebody posted yesterday asking a question about why it wouldn't accept the default username and password after a fresh install. And there was another person that commented on the video for, and this was another video I did last year on Open Indiana, which was the derivative of Solaris. And I'd commented in that video when I recorded it because I have sort of a standard configuration um, that I use in VirtualBox when I'm testing out a new operating system.
Right.
And I had noticed that Open Indiana was using a lot of resources and just felt sluggish compared to a typical Linux distribution that I might test out in VirtualBox. And somebody had proposed the idea that it could be related to ZFS, or as the Brits will call it, ZFS.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I like ZFS actually. I like ZFS.
yeah. So they were saying that it could be because of just that file system being a little bit more hardware or resource intensive.
Yeah.
Um, and it had been like 18 months since I'd recorded the video, and I couldn't remember if I even chose ZFS or if I went with UFS, knowing that it had a little bit lesser resource requirement. And for my
Right.
testing purposes, it wasn't really going to make a lot of difference which one I used. So
Right.
I just I couldn't recall, and I think I've deleted that virtual machine because that was 18 months ago. So
Right.
I may be revisiting with the new version of Open Indiana and just playing around with that and some of the install options just to see if all other things being equal, if choosing one file system over the other would give better performance in a VM.
Yeah, well,
Um,
there's always the overhead of the VM itself. I mean,
right,
it's a heavy
right,
dependence on your system that it's running on, right?
yeah, absolutely. So and I'll admit, my equipment is not new. Uh, my reason for not doing more with OBS for live streaming is because, well, really two factors. One being my slow upload speed, and the other being, well, my poor little Mac Mini over here is um, 8 years old.
Yeah, that's getting on there.
And even with the i7 and 16 gigs of RAM and a solid state drive, OBS will push it to its limits.
Yep. I
So
tried I tried running OBS on that little thing there. It does work, but it's really slow.
yeah,
And that's an i7 as well, but it's a lower end. Well,
right, right,
lower mid stage i7, so
sure. Well, and of course, with a lot of Apple products, the Mac Mini being as small as it is, they use mobile parts. So right there, I'm taking a hit over a desktop
yeah,
i7.
you are. Yeah.
So it is what it is. That's part of the reason I've got my rack server running, and I'm doing more videos with that. But when it comes to testing a Linux distribution or anything in general with a GUI, the rack system being older just doesn't have the graphical oomph to
Right.
really do it justice.
Yeah.
So I'm working on a couple of machines that I've got here that are a little bit newer than the Mac Mini, but I had temporarily decommissioned them for other hardware issues. I think one needs a different power supply,
Wow.
and there was another machine that something else was going on with it. It was just acting flaky all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So those are just turned off, tucked in a corner in the extra bedroom. But I want to get back into doing some more of that stuff. You know, I part of the reason for using StreamYard is because they do all the heavy processing in the cloud,
Right.
and I can still download the MP4 source file to edit.
Right.
So this recording, for instance, is having very little impact on the Mac Mini. So it's it was
It's a subscription service, though, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm hoping that if everything goes well by this time next year, I won't need it anymore, and I can go back to just using OBS on a little bit higher powered machine. But we'll see how things fall in place between now and then.
I
So,
forget. Did I forget if you mentioned if you actually ever built the whole PC or you upgrade them, obviously, right?
oh yeah, I've built several PCs. Lately, my interest has been more in with being a little bit more landfill aware. Buying off lease machines and repurposing them.
Right.
Um,
I've done a couple of those myself. Yeah.
right, but for a video editing rig, I really need to build something with a nicer graphics card and a little
Yeah.
bit more power, just to allow me to do some of the things that I want to do that current resources are not allowing me to do.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
So I wouldn't even dream of editing 4K on the equipment I've got right now. So it's one of those things. It's one of my wish lists for 2021.
Right.
The 4K part might get pushed to 2022, but if I can build a Ryzen system in 2021, I would be very happy. And that's part of the reason that I've been working to. And I don't think I've mentioned this on my channel before, but that's part of the reason I've been putting together, and hopefully it'll be ready for launch in the next week or two. But I'm going to have a Patreon option to
Oh,
help support the channel.
okay.
So I've seen a lot of other creators do that and do pretty well with it. And I thought I'd at least give it a shot. And if it doesn't go anywhere in 6 months' time, then I'll just back
Right.
off.
I don't know about Patreon, but I definitely want to go for membership when I'm able to do it. I think you got to have 10,000 subscribers though before they let you do memberships. It's something like that.
Okay, through YouTube
Through
themselves.
YouTube. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Have a membership. Yeah.
yeah.
They've been pushing that a lot lately. I don't know if you watch the Creator Insiders channel that
I
YouTube itself
haven't
runs.
watched the recent ones.
Yeah, I watched two of those. I watched the Creators Insider, and there's another one I watch. Let me see, what's that one called again? Creators Insider, and there's another one called YouTube Creators,
Okay.
and they're both, obviously backed by YouTube itself. So I watch those whenever something new comes up.